All right, we got a lot to do on this one. Hilchos Mezuzah is wild. It's interesting that he puts Hilchos Mezuzah here. Hilchos Mezuzah in Shulchan Aruch is found in Yeridea. And here he put it right here in the Aruch section. I'm assuming because he's talking about tefillin and talis and tefillins, and then he goes on to mezuzah. Okay, but without further ado, let's start because we got to do. It's long, and we got to try and do a couple to make up for tomorrow. So, but there's a lot that applies to in addition to what the Kitzur says. Mitzvah say lekvay mezuzah b'chol Pesach. It's a mitzvah say to put a mezuzah on every door. And even if he has many rooms, and each room has many doorways that are meant to enter and exit. Even though he only uses one entrance, they're all chayav in mezuzah. Even if, let's say, there was a large family and then they all got married or left the house and then now they don't need to use multiple doors, still they're all chayav. Let's say this is sort of like a storage or to bring in merchandise, when otherwise you won't use it. But you have a different door. This, I think, is like loading docks. So the loading dock usually has a door next to it that you can walk in. So he's saying, the door to just take in loads, you are potter. What about emergency exits? So emergency exits are not meant to be used at all. So many poskim say that Shlomo Zalman Aruch says it's potter because it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be a door, a usable door. Okay.
Even if it ends up being used as like the smoker's exit?
No, so if the Olam doesn't listen and they use it anyway, so then you got to put on a mezuzah. I don't know if they get the smokers to put it on, but yeah. Fine. Base. Gam shari chatzeres mavuis ayoras medinas chayam mezuzah shenemar v'sharecha. Right, even a gate for a city or a yard. Let's say, sometimes people have in the front yard, they have like a gate with if a regular gate you don't need because it doesn't have a mashkaf, which we'll see later. It doesn't have the thing going over the top. But if it goes over the top, then really it needs a mezuzah. And cities, and like the old city has mezuzahs, and countries, they're all chayav mezuzah. Fine. Gimel tzarich lekava b'yamin hanichnas. You have to put it onto the right of those as you enter into the room. V'im kava b'small psula, and if you put it on the left, then it's puzzle. V'tzarich lasira v'lekava b'yamin v'yivarach aleh. And you have to take off the mezuzah, put it onto the right side, and make a bracha because it's useless. And it doesn't make a difference if you're a lefty or not. Meaning we don't favor lefties here. You put it always onto the right side. Fine. Dalit shnei batim asher l'chol echad yesh pesach l'shus harabim or l'chatza. So if you have two houses, and each one of them has a door to the rishus harabim or to the yard, v'mechitza asher b'neim, and they also have a door in between them. Yesh gam kein pesach. I'm sorry, v'mechitza asher b'neim yesh gam kein pesach, and the mechitza between them also has a door. But hashta yesh l'stapim v'pesach hazeh be'eset tzad yitin has a mezuzah. We all have this in our houses, I'm assuming. You have a door in between two rooms, your living room, dining room, kitchen, hallway, right? Kitchen, den, whatever. It's endless. So where do you put the mezuzah in between two rooms? Right? It's very complicated. So the mahalach now is that I tell them, don't try and describe it for me. Just send a video, and we'll try and figure it out. So there's a whole hierarchy of the order of what you're supposed to do. But he basically, the Kitzur says one of them. Azlina basar basar heker tzir. You go with where the tzir is really the bolt of the door. But what it basically what it means is which way the door swings. If it swings in, which is usually the case, so then you put it on the right side as you're going through the door, the way it swings. Right? Meaning, if as you enter it, most of the time, a door swings in, I think, right? So then you put the mezuzah on the right side because that's the way you enter. Wherever, wherever the door enters, that's the entrance to the room. That the door opens up into it. That's called the ikar abayis. You put it on the right side. However, there's a caveat. That's only when you use both houses for the same, meaning the same amount of time. But let's say one is the ikar, then we don't go with this qualification of which way the door swings. You put it on the right side to the ikar bias that you're going there, that you use. And even if the door opens up into the room that's less used, you still put it on the right side, going into the room that's more used. So you have that with dens, or like if you have living rooms that are only used for, when you have guests, and otherwise the lights are off there and nobody goes in there. So then it would not go on the right side going into that room. It would go from the right side, leaving that room, going into the main room. Right? So that's basically what the Kitzur says. So you have to know which rooms are the ikar. So usually a kitchen is very much an ikar room. So that's why you could have mezuzahs on, if you have two doors going into a kitchen, you could have mezuzahs on both sides, on the right side going in. Right? Because traffic goes in both ways. Now there's also a rule very quickly of like a railroaded rooms, meaning if like a room is at the end of a hallway, so that room always gets the right side going in. Meaning, if there's no way out of those rooms, then usually it goes on the right side going into those rooms. Right, and then of course, the biggest shaila that gets asked: on which side do you put the mezuzah going onto a porch? Right, going out to the yard. Do you put it on the right side going out to the porch, or do you put on the right side coming in from the porch? That's a machlokes between Bnei Brak and Yerushalayim. Of course, I don't remember who holds what now, but I think it's Bnei Brak. I think the Chazon Ish held that it's the Chazon Ish held you put the mezuzah on the way into the house, and Yerushalayim they say you make it on the way out to the porch. I think that's the Minchas Yitzchok held that, whatever it is. But that's what this is. So it's complicated things where to put the mezuzah. Fine. Hey, Makai. We get up to the hey. Yeah, Makaima. Where do you put it on the wall? Mitchilas shlish ha'elyon shel goiva hashar. You put it on the upper third of the height of the gate. If you put it above that, then kshera, it's still kosher. But you can't put it all the way up against the ceiling. Right? The mashkov is what do you call it? Lintel, I think they call it. Yeah, lintel. So if you put it within a tefach of that, then it's no good. Let's say you do it less than a third. Then you have to take it off, and then you make a bracha. But if you put it way up to the ceiling, within a tefach of the ceiling, you got to take it down, but no bracha. You have to be kaveh on the tefach that's closest to the outside, meaning, let's say your doorway is a foot thick, so your mezuzah should be within a tefach of the outer part of the doorway, even though it may not look symmetrical, because usually you want to put it in the middle of the doorway. That we paskin that you should not. You should put it more towards the edge. But if you don't, then that's not ma'akiv. Now the top, the bottom of the top third is very low. People, you tell people they measure their door and it's really low. And people say, "Are you sure the mezuzah should be so low?" It seems like in the minig, because most people keep the mezuzahs higher, but it should be at the bottom of the top third, right? It says mekaymas mitchilas shlisha elyon. I'm telling you, go to your doorways and measure them. Measure the doorway and chop off a third. You'll see that most of our mezuzahs are higher than a third by a lot. Okay, but it's still kosher.
Isn't that because of Rashi?
Why? Because
Rashi says the reason it's 2/3 is because that's the shoulder height. That should be shoulder height.
Right, but it's not. It's higher than shoulder. Many people have it well higher than shoulder height. But anyways, what was I going to say? I don't remember. Okay, Vav Ketzat Koiva. How do you put up the mezuzah? So Korcha, Misayfa L'Roisha, you wrap it up from the end to the beginning, meaning the Hainu Me'echad Klape Shema. You'd go from Echad, which is the end of the mezuzah, towards Shema, and then Manicha B'Shveferes, you put it into a case, by B'Shar Dover or to something else, B'Koiva B'Masmairis, and you be Koiva with nails. The mezuzah is a Pesach, and the mezuzah is a Pesach. So that sounds like according to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you have to attach your mezuzah with nails. The poets can bring that it doesn't have to necessarily be with nails. It seems like that was the option back then. Nowadays, we do it with glue or strong tape, etc. That's also okay. But there's a few things that the Kitzur doesn't say that we should mention it just when we're learning it. So that shveiferes, the case, should be up against the wall. Meaning some people have these clear cases with wood at the top and the bottom, and there's a space between the wall and the mezuzah. That's not proper. It should be flush. It should be flush against the wall. It's not possible, but it should be flush against the wall. It also shouldn't be loose. It shouldn't be hanging. It should be tight. Right? And also you got to make sure that the shin dalid yud that's on the back of the cloth of the mezuzah should be showing. Right? I mean, it doesn't. If you have a cover that's not see-through, then you don't have to have it showing, but it should be the equivalent of where you would put your fingers when you kiss it. Fine. Then we have one of the most fascinating, what do you call it, psharas? How do you say pshara? Compromise, right? So you put in the mezuzah Pesach ba'alachsan on an angle, right? So we know that our mezuzah is on an angle. Why? Rashi holds that the mezuzahs are supposed to be straight, and Rabbeinu Tam holds they should be flat, right? Unless I mixed up the shitas. So because of that, so we put it on an angle. All right. So we do like somewhere in between both shitas. Okay. So so which way do you tilt it? You put the head of it, which is Shema, keneged abayis, towards the inside. And the last line is tzad chutz. Basically, when you're looking at the doorway, the top part of the mezuzah should be leaning towards the left. And if let's say the mezuzah, meaning a mezuzah means a a doorway. So if the mezuzah's a Pesach is not wide, then you do it standing up, which is very common. Is that type and that's better than putting it behind the door, which we'll get to. And like if you weren't kaveh and it was just hanging, your mezuzah is possible. You got to make sure you put a nail on the top and on the bottom. It should not be hanging. Fine. Zion. Before you kaveh, Yivarech Asher Kedushan Mitzvah it's Yivana L'Koya Mezuzah. And if you're putting up many mezuzahs, it's enough to make one bracha, but of course you can't talk in between. If you do talk in between that had something having nothing to do with the mezuzah, then you'll have to make another bracha, which is not great. And also, the owner of the house is the one that has the mitzvah. he should be the one putting up the mezuzah. So I don't know, when people call rebbes and celebrities to put up the mezuzahs, they can put up one of the mezuzahs, but the main thing should be done by the owner. It's his mitzvah. Right? Im nafla mezuzah me'atzma, let's say the mezuzah falls down by itself, and then you put it back up. Same way, if your talis falls off, you have to make a bracha, or your tefillin, well, tefillin don't fall off, but whatever it is, you're mesiach das, so you have to make a new bracha. There are many that are chaylik on that though, so and they say that you should not make a new bracha. But let's say you take it off in order to check the mezuzah. Then it's a suffix whether you should make a bracha. So there's also a compromise. The person can say if it's off for a day, then you make a bracha. If it's off for less than a day, then you don't make a bracha. Fine. In some gates, there's a small door next to a large door. Because they usually use the small door, I think, like on firehouses, at least the one that used to be near Shayoshev. So they have the gates, and then they have a small door that they use that's within it. So which one is considered the door? So they go out and in. And the Shara Gadol is only open once in a while. And let's say you have two doors, or since there's two doors and there's a Pesach, there's a Tefach wide pillar, I guess, in between. Then you need two mezuzahs. That comes up a lot. People in their basements have pillars, so they need a mezuzah in between the pillars. So the reason why in basements usually you don't need it is because this is only if it's meant to make a doorway. If it's there to hold up the building, and it's also for front porches. Right? Some people have porches, and it's being held up by poles. So if the poles are only there to hold up the roof, then that's not a mezuzah. A mezuzah has to be a door, and it has to be meant for a door. Fine, test. So if you're in a place that you have to be afraid that maybe they're going to steal it. This is in the old city, they have it like this. If it's possible, dig out the wall and put the mezuzah inside the wall. Don't go more than don't dig. Lachbar means to dig. Don't dig into the wall more than a tefach. That's not on the mezuzah. Rak toich mezuzah, only in the mezuzah upas. You also need to be, it needs to be nicker where the mezuzah is. If you can't dig it into the mezuzah device, you can rely inside behind the door. Meaning, let's finish first. But dafka in the mezuzah itself and not on the wall. And you can't make the mezuzah further away than the chalal of the Pesach, or more than the tefach, because then it's not close to the wall. Same thing by Hanukkah. You have to have the menorah, so those that light in the doorway within a tefach of the doorway. Meaning, sometimes in this shayla, I get a lot of pictures of this. I should have tried to find some to put on the chat. You have these glass walls in offices that separate offices. Right, so it's a glass wall which is thin, and then there's a door. Where are you putting the mezuzah there? You can't put it inside the doorway because there's no room. So the best thing to do is to build out a doorway and put the mezuzah there, which they're not going to do that because it'll look ugly. So then what you do is you put it on the wall. It's a big b'diavad. You put it on the wall next to the door. But the way the Kitzur says is you put it on the inside. The reason why he says that is he's afraid you put it on the outside, people will take it. But nowadays that we're not really concerned, so it should be on the outside, meaning when you're looking at the door as you enter the room, the mezuzah should be on the wall within a tefach. But it's a big b'diavad to do that. Okay, good. Now here is a fascinating thing that's also very, very common. A bias. Now, anytime he says bias, by the way, it means a room is considered a bias. So ain't a bias chayv mezuzah elim ken yesh by dalet amas al dalet amas. It needs to have at least 4 amas by 4 amas, which varies what that measurement is, but 6 by 6. Vim ain't by dalet amas al dalet amas, but if there's no 4 amas by 4 amas, avol yesh by kedela raveya dalet amas. But it has enough to be meraveh, meaning it's not, let's say, it's not 6 feet by 6 feet, but it's 4 feet by 8 feet, or something like that. Like it's longer than the width, or it's round. Yesharim the chayiv, yesharim the potter. Some say chayiv, some say potter. So, of course, what are we going to do? We're going to put it up without a bracha. That is a fascinating machlokes between Rabbi Akiva Eiger and the Chamudei Daniel, brought in the Pesach Chuv and Shulchan Aruch. The Chamudei Daniel says that if it's a room that's meant to be used, that's less than dalet amos al dalet amos, then it needs a mezuzah, right? So if you have a walk-in closet and it's less than dalet al dalet, but it's meant to be used, and according to the Chamudei Daniel, you need a mezuzah. Others say you don't need a mezuzah. Bottom line is it needs to be 4 by 4, or at least the equivalent. Rabbi Akiva Eiger has a fascinating chumrah. He says that if the room, even if the room is smaller than 4 by 4, so you don't put a mezuzah going into the room, but what about if you're standing in that small room, when you walk into the big room, you need a mezuzah on the right side going into the big room, because that's a door going into a room. So it comes out, if you want to be machmer like the Chamudei Daniel and Rabbi Akiva Eiger, if you have a walk-in closet that's small, you'll need mezuzah on both sides. But you don't make brachas, because each one is a machlokes. Just an interesting thing. I guess everybody will ask their local Orthodox rabbi about their walk-in closets. Now, how do you calculate the walk-in closet? So furniture that's in there, that's movable, so then that does not subtract from the dalet amos by dalet amos. But if it's built-in shelves, etc., then many poskim say that would subtract from the amount of space in the room. Okay, fine. Yud Aleph. Ein pesach chayiv mezuzah elam yesh shtei mezuzahs. Meaning you're not chayiv. You need to have 2 mezuzahs. Amudei pesach psastin tirchtok. That's I guess whatever language that is. Hungarian. Gavayis l'chol hapachas asar tvachim. It has to be at least 10 tvachim high. Umashka b'gavan. It also has to have a mashka. Very common. Sometimes, like going into a kitchen or going to a living room, there's doorways on the side, but nothing drops down from the ceiling. You don't need a mezuzah there. I've been to many houses where they have them, and you don't need it. I don't even think there's a chumrah to have it. It needs to have a doorway. If it doesn't drop down, then it doesn't. Now he's talking about where sometimes you have an opening where it's again the right side of the wall. It doesn't. Oh, let's see. And even if the mezuzah are not made from wood or other stone, there's just the wall of the mezuzahs. Meaning, even if it's not a separate entity, right? But it's made out of the stones of the wall, then that's also chayiv. But let's say the room only has 1 mezuzah. Again, mezuzah doesn't mean the scroll that we hang them. Mezuzah means the doorway. Let's say it only has one sticking out. And one side, the wall continues. Meaning sometimes you have this in hallways. I should really find pictures of all this on my phone. But you have like in a hallway. So there's no mezuzah, nothing sticking out from one side of the hallway, and then the other side forms the doorway. So it's not really 2 mezuzahs that would require a mezuzah. Im small potter. So if it's on the left side, it's potter, meaning the mezuzah that sticks out, if it's on the left side, it's potter, because like we said, as you go into the right side, there's no mezuzah. There's a suffix, and then you can pay without a bracha. He's saying another rule here. You don't make a bracha on it, but what you can do is if you're putting up multiple mezuzahs, so make sure you make the bracha on a room that definitely requires a bracha, and then you go and have it in mind on this door. Anytime you have a suffix, you do this. Okay, that's today's Kitzur. Let's just do. Oh, it's late. Okay, let's just at least do one. Let's say it has 2 mezuzahs, but it doesn't have a drop down, like we just discussed. Except here, it's a, how do you call it? Oval on top. There's a word for it. It's an oval.
Dome? An arch?
An arch, right? It's an arch. The opening is an arch, right? A lot of times you have that going from a living room to a dining room, etc., etc. Sometimes it doesn't have mezuzahs, and it just has like some sort of arch. If there is at the height of 10 tvachim, a width of 4 tvachim, meaning if it goes like this, like a teepee, so then it's not going to need. Meaning you need to have, at least when it's 10 tvachim high, at least 4 tvachim wide. Sometimes you have a store that makes one mezuzah, meaning one wall, sort of, from the ground to the mashka. And one mezuzah that doesn't reach the mashka. You bring in the kaisel be'erech and amo more kazeh. Well, I don't have it in mind. I don't know if you, those that have the article, I don't know if you have a picture or not. If the mezuzah that's at the height of the mashkav is on the right side, but if the mezuzah that's small is on the right, if it's high 10 tvachim, you put the mezuzah on it. Meaning basically you try and find the most the spot that's the most chayiv. Some say that even if there's no doors to the Pesach, a door means an actual swinging door. This is an important thing. People are not aware of it. There's the Rambam Shita. I'm sorry, it's not the Rambam Shita. The Yesharim that even if there's no door, it's just an opening, you need a mezuzah. Yesharim the Beinin Dafka Delis. You need to actually have a door. Right? Many people in their kitchens, they don't have doors. Don't put up the mezuzah before you put the door. Let's say you're doing construction. You want to put up a mezuzah and then you're getting the new door in later. Don't put up the mezuzah until you put the door, because it's not chayav according to many Rishonim until there's actually a door there. And don't put the mezuzah there and then hang the door. Because it has to be tasav eloim also, meaning if you have to make a bracha on a mezuzah, when you're putting up mezuzah, don't make the bracha on a doorway that does not have a door, because according to many Rishonim, it's not chayiv in mezuzah, right? It's a mistake that people make. Make sure it has a door, the one that you're making the bracha on. Yeah, okay, we'll stop over there. I hope that was that Yud Gimel, Yud Beis was a little bit not so clear. I apologize about that. All right, have a good night, everybody. Sudas Taivas.